All right, so you're dreaming of building things that go into space, a career in satellite engineering that's pretty ambitious. We've been looking at some stuff from RoleCatcher, they're a career development platform, and they have some great info that can help make this dream a reality.
You can think of this deep dive as like a launch pad. It'll get you prepped for a journey into satellite engineering.
Okay, so satellite engineer, what's the actual job? What do they really do all day? It's got to be more than just looking at stars, right?
Oh, way more. Think designing, building, testing. You're even controlling these super complex machines that orbit the Earth, like GPS communications networks. Even weather forecasting it all relies on the work of satellite engineers.
Wow, okay. That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
So where do these engineers actually work? Is it all like high-tech labs and remote launch sites?
It's a mix. One day you might be in a lab fine-tuning a satellite component, making sure it can handle the crazy conditions in space.
Intense. What does fine-tuning even mean in that situation?
It could be calibrating sensors to make sure they're collecting good data, or adjusting the propulsion system for orbital maneuvers.
Mm.
And you're not alone in this, obviously. You'll be working with other engineers, scientists, software developers. It's a whole team effort.
So teamwork is important. You're not building a satellite in your basement.
No, definitely not. I remember this one time I was working on a project, and the satellite's communication system was going haywire while it was in orbit.
Oh.
Yeah, and we had engineers working nonstop around the clock. Some were antenna experts, some knew all about signal processing, and they had to communicate super clearly to figure out what was wrong and fix it remotely.
Wow. That must have been stressful. Sounds like problem solving is a big part of the job,
Yeah.
especially when things go wrong millions of miles away.
Yeah, for sure. You need to be able to think on your feet and come up with solutions fast. You can't exactly just, hit a reset button when the satellite's up in space.
Right? Millions of miles away.
Yeah.
So it sounds like having a really strong foundation in like the fundamentals of engineering, that's got to be super important.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're talking about understanding things like orbital mechanics, how satellites stay up there,
Makes sense.
communication systems, how they're sending and receiving data, even material science becomes important. You got to know what can handle those extreme conditions in space.
It's not just about like knowing the physics equations,
Yeah.
right? You have to know how to actually use them to solve real problems in space.
Exactly. And don't forget about software. We're talking about complex systems here. Remember, we were talking about control systems.
Yeah.
Those are basically the brains of the satellite. They manage everything, power, pointing the instruments.
Oh, wow.
And knowing how to design and test, troubleshoot that software is critical for a satellite engineer.
So you need like a good mix of hardware and software knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm also curious about the testing part. I bet that's a huge deal, right?
Yep.
With something as complicated as a satellite.
Huge. It's rigorous. We test at every stage. We're talking vibration testing, simulating the launch,
Oh, right, of course.
thermal vacuum testing to recreate the temperatures in space, and electromagnetic interference testing, making sure everything on board plays nicely together. That's actually where resources like RoleCatcher come in handy. They show you what technical skills employers really want so you can focus your learning.
That's smart. It's like a cheat sheet for your career.
Yeah.
But it's not all just technical, is it? You mentioned teamwork before. Sounds like communication is super important too.
Oh, 100%. You're always explaining complex ideas, whether it's writing a report or presenting to, the higher-ups or just brainstorming solutions with your team. Being able to explain these complicated things clearly and simply, that's super important.
So you got to be able to bring people along with you. It's not enough to just be good at the technical stuff, right?
Right? Especially when, something's going wrong and you need everyone on the same page to find a fix, and the stakes are high, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Millions of dollars.
Exactly. Millions of dollars of equipment and maybe even, important services here on Earth are relying on this satellite.
That's a lot of pressure. Okay, so let's say someone is interested in this field. What's the best way to get started? Should they be looking at like aerospace engineering degrees?
Yeah, totally.
So is that the usual path? Aerospace engineering?
It's common. A bachelor's in aerospace engineering gives you the basics, but honestly, it's not all about the degree itself. It's what you do with it.
So experience is key.
Totally. And that's where internships come in. You get to like apply what you've learned, work on real projects, see how everything actually works.
It's like a trial run before the real deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of, we were talking about RoleCatcher earlier. They have resources for finding internships, don't they?
They do. You can search for internships in, all kinds of areas.
Mm-hmm.
Propulsion systems, satellite communications, even space imaging.
Cool.
They've got tips for resumes and interviews, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's really helpful. It's like having a secret weapon or something. So, okay, you've done some internships. You're building up your experience. What else can you do to, like, stand out? This is a competitive field.
Oh, yeah, it is. Remember we were talking about problem solving before?
Right. Being able to think on your feet.
Employers want to see that you can do more than just, the textbook stuff.
Right. But how do you actually show that?
Personal projects are a good way, like stuff outside of school. Maybe you design something,
Right.
build a little antenna or something, or use software to simulate a satellite's orbit. There's a program called STK. Some people use that.
So it's about showing that you're, like, really into it, that you take initiative.
Yeah, exactly. Show that passion. And networking. Don't forget about networking. Go to conferences, join groups like the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. That's a big one.
The AIAA, yeah.
Connect with people on LinkedIn. Talking to people is so important in this field.
Makes sense. Yeah. It's all about making those connections. So, okay, let's say you've done all that. You've got the experience. You land that satellite engineer job. What's next? What's the career path look like?
Honestly, the possibilities are kind of endless. You could start as like an entry-level engineer working on specific parts of a project.
Okay.
And then as you get more experience, you might specialize. Like maybe you become the propulsion systems guru or something.
I like that, the goo.
Or you could move into management. Some people go into research, developing new technologies, that kind of thing.
So there's room to grow, even within the same company.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, with how much satellite technology is growing, for communication, for the environment, for space exploration, I mean, the job market is looking really good.
That's awesome. It's really inspiring for anyone who, is dreaming of a career that's literally out of this world.
Yeah. And remember, this is just us scratching the surface. If you're serious about this, check out RoleCatcher. They can give you much more in-depth info.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Hopefully this has given you a good overview of what it takes to be a satellite engineer. It's challenging for sure, but also incredibly rewarding.
Definitely.
If you're passionate, if you're curious, and you put in the work, you can make it happen. So keep reaching for those stars.